Welcome back to Dirty 20, everyone. Today we talk through one of the most perilous moments in your first campaign, awarding magical items. Let's get on with the show. Thanks for joining us, lovely people. Now, we've already done a video on magic items and attunement, which is a really important rule in 5e. I recommend you check out that video. But today I wanted to talk about awarding magical items to your party for the first time, and how difficult it can be to maintain balance if a magical item is a little bit overpowered. Now, as I mentioned in our previous video, random tables are a lot of fun, but they can result in either a really useless magical item or potentially one which is overpowered. For example, winged boots. These are a wondrous item, meaning it's something that you wear or you carry. But it is also uncommon and therefore, according to the Dungeon Master's Guide, appropriate for characters between 1st and 4th level. Now, while I don't entirely disagree, the fact that these boots give a character flight for essentially 4 hours a day can really change the balance of combat and exploration encounters. And it could make things really tough for your campaign moving forward. So last we saw our heroes, they were heading to the Fugue Plain to rescue the soul of Leggy the Ranger, who had died, unfortunately, in a combat encounter. Now, let's imagine that they were successful and they managed to get to Leggy's soul, but the player that lost Leggy and has now been using our Tabaxi monk, Mao Zhu, has absolutely fallen in love with this character, and they would rather keep going with them. Now here we can have a beautiful scene saying goodbye to the character of Leggy. And this may even bring a tear to your player's eyes. Om nom nom nom. That's what I live for as a DM. The salty tears of my players. But seriously though, those kinds of moments are actually my favorite things about D&D, and it's what makes D&D, in my opinion, the best game there is. With this epic moment, along with getting a new party member in Mao Zhu, this seems like an appropriate moment to get some loot, and some really quite nice loot. We may even go up to level 3, but stick around for our character building section for that. Now, among the gold, gems, and consumables, like a potion or a scroll with a useful spell in it, you may like the idea of giving the players a cool magical item. Now, I'll be perfectly honest, as a DM, I enjoy handing out magical items almost as much as players enjoy receiving them. But I do remember in my very first campaign, I gave a magical item which I thought was, reasonably cool and not game-breaking. It was a doorknob that, when placed on any surface, would create a doorway. Yeah, I know, I should have thought it through, but I didn't. Now, anytime the party wanted to break into somewhere, they could just do it by opening a door. Or anytime they kind of got trapped or captured, they always had an out. Now, luckily, the player who had actually picked up this magical item, he kind of realized this and decided not to abuse it, for which I'm eternally grateful. And eventually, a situation came up where they were unable to retrieve the doorknob. But I would caution against this. Giving something to someone and then kind of taking it away from them, it doesn't feel great. So I think the important thing is to really think about the magical item that you're going to be giving. And as cool as random tables can be to roll on, I would say use them more as an inspiration. And there's nothing wrong with going with like a classic magical item like the Bag of Holding. Now, this item solves the whole thing about working out your carrying capacity and how much stuff you're actually able to carry around, because often players will just write things down on their character sheet and not really think about it again, and they've just got it on them wherever they go. And I tend to not police this very hard, so Bag of Holding kind of solves that issue. One person's going to be holding on to the bulk of the stuff, and you can ask players to only write down on their character sheet maybe what they've got on them. But be aware that placing a bag of holding in an extra dimensional space created by a handy haversack or a portable hole or a similar item instantly destroys both items and creates a gate to the astral plane. Any creature within 10 feet of it is sucked into the astral plane to a random place. The gate then closes. It's only one way and it can't be reopened. I guess that's one way to take your campaign extraplanar. I think the lesson here is, yes, think about what a cool item you would like to give, one that the players would really enjoy and would be useful. But remember, there can be unintended consequences with any magical item. And the best thing to do is to roll with it, turn it into part of the story. The easiest way to do this is by turning them into cursed items, but a little bit like the whole having an NPC betray the party, I think that this is something that A, you don't want to do very often, and B, you want to avoid for kind of the first magic item that you hand out. So back to our party and their loot after their rescue from the fugue plane. Leggy, having been led to the Forest of Spirits, the place of his people's afterlife and eternal resting place, he seemingly plucks a piece of his soul and begins to wrap it in his hands. As he compresses it, light shines through his fingers. Finally, he extends his hand to his friends, and one last time they all clasp hands. When his spirit pulls away, they are left with a brooch in the shape of a stag's antlers. Now, at this point, you're probably going to want to tell your players exactly what it is, a brooch of shielding, and exactly what it does. Give resistance to force damage and immunity to damage from magic missile spell. Useful, but not game-changing. Probably best suited to Jim the Wizard. Never a bad thing, as your wizards tend to be the squishiest amongst the party. I say go for it. If they don't have the identify spell, then it just takes a short rest focusing on the magic item to at least get a sense of what it is. I sometimes just ask my players who are proficient in Arcana to give me an Arcana check, and as long as they don't fluff it, I'll give them a sense of what the item does. In this case, I might say that they feel a sense of protection as they hold the brooch, almost like an invisible barrier buzzes around them. There we have it, guys. Now, before we jump into our character building section, please make sure that you are subscribed, as this really helps the channel grow. Okay then, guys, so today in our character building section, we're going to level up our party and bring them up to level 3. Now, for most of our characters, level 3 is a really important level. We already looked at where we might go with Maoju in our previous episode, going to level 3, focusing on the Death Monk archetype. I think would be very cool. But let's start with Wolf, our fighter. And fighters are, I don't want to say dull, but they don't have a lot of great archetypes to choose from. The Battle Master can be a lot of fun, but if your player chose the fighter because they are kind of the simplest character class to play, you don't have to, keep track of a lot of things. The Battle Master begins to include things like combat maneuvers, which are not that dissimilar to kind of spells and things like that. So the easiest one to continue with is the Champion archetype. Again, one that probably a lot of people would say is a little bit boring, but I think it's cool and it's simple. So we're going to get some more hit points. We're now at 31, which isn't at all bad. And we get the Fighter archetype Champion, which is improved critical on 19 or higher. And that is nice in combat. It means that you're more likely to start getting criticals, which is more fun. So I don't dislike that. But moving on, we're going to take a look at Garn, and we're going to level him up. We're going to stick with Cleric. We get some more hit points. We're up to 27. Our armor class is still beautiful. It's still 18. Now here, we actually get some more spells. And these ones at second level are the ones that your cleric gets because of the path that they took. We took the path of life. And so lesser restoration and spiritual weapon. Spiritual weapon is actually one of the best spells in the game, so I'm totally okay with that. In terms of what I would take, so 2 more level 1 spells. I would definitely take Healing Word. We're going with a quite healing heavy cleric, so that makes a lot of sense. And then here we could go one of 2 ways. We could go Shield of Faith, or we could go Command. Now, I kind of like Command because it has a lot of uses. It's not a concentration spell. It can be used, like I say, in combat, but also in social situations. I think it's a really cool spell. Then, for our second level spells, which we can choose 2 because those are given to us from our character archetype, the life cleric. And I'm going to go with Calm Emotions. I think that, well, the main reason why I'm going with this spell is because it was used amazingly by a player in a game that I was running. It was a one-shot, and it was a cleric, a dwarf cleric, and there was just one of these situations that was getting out of hand. The players were arguing with these NPCs, and a fight was literally about to erupt. And Calm Emotions is just the ideal spell to diffuse one of these situations. I think it's much more handy than people actually think it is. And for the final spell, I'm going to take one called Gentle Repose. Now, this spell essentially extends the time that a player's body can be brought back from the dead using a spell like Raise the Dead. It extends it by 10 days. Now, what I like about this for this particular situation is that I can imagine Garn having been quite shocked at losing Leggy, and so him wanting to prevent that from happening in the future would be quite cool, I think. Next up, we've got Jim, our level 2 wizard. And again, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting more spells. So let's level up wizard. And we're going to get a couple more spells at first level. And I'm going to go with one that I kind of think I should have probably taken earlier on. But because I haven't played a lot of wizards, I didn't realize quite how amazing this spell is. Find Familiar. So essentially, yay, we get an animal companion. Check out our previous video on Dungeons and Doggies, Cats and Catacombs, and Companions and Campaigns. But definitely don't underestimate the power of this spell. It extends the range of touch spells, for example. The ability to see and hear through the familiar means, again, exploration is going to be altered. But definitely one that most wizards should take, I think. And then the other one that I really like is Thunderwave. It's an area of effect spell. It affects the 5 inches all around you. Sorry, 5 feet all around you. And it causes damage and it pushes people away. Now, the reason I think this is very good is for Jim is that if he's ever got anyone next to him, he's kind of in trouble. So having something that can extricate him from a situation, I think could be very, very good. Now, second level spells, we've gone with a Divination Wizard. So I kind of think that augury kind of makes sense. Now, this can be a very frustrating spell because it's essentially a way of asking a higher being if something is going to work out or not. And the way that they respond is either by saying wheel, as in, you're all good, go for it. Woe, as in, I'm not sure it's a great idea. Wheel and woe, which is like, meh, could be good, could be bad. And no answer whatsoever. However, I like this because it's very Jim the Seer, which is the kind of character that I'm wanting to build. So augury, let's go for it. Invisibility is always a great spell to have for infiltration, for all kinds of stuff, but I really like Mind Spike. Mind Spike is a divination spell, so it's easier, it's cheaper to copy down. Don't forget that wizards, that's how they learn new spells, is by adding them to their book, to their spell book. But this is a good one. It's quite nasty. 3d8 psychic damage on a failed wisdom save and half on a successful save. Those are always good spells to have, in my opinion. And finally, we're looking at Sorsha, our bard at level 2, who just has amazing stats and great abilities. And we're going to level her up, sticking with bard. Now, bard, unlike the fighter, has lots of really good archetypes, lots of really good subclasses. So, for example, the College of Whispers is very cool about you're essentially a spy and a great manipulator. That could fit Sorsha. Swords is also really cool if you want a bard that can really kind of mix it up and fight. Law is amazing for spells and is probably the best spellcaster in the game, would be a law bard. But I'm really partial to the glamour bard, which is all about kind of performing and charming people and stuff like that. And I think that really fits Sorsha really, really well. So we're going to go with that. Now, at level 3, you get double proficiency expertise on 2 skills. And I'm going to go with performance and persuasion. Performance is not necessarily one that you would pick unless you're going glamour bard, and you'll see why in just a minute. We get a few more hit points. Okay, so we are now at 21. Still a bit of a glass cannon. But we get more spells, and we also get this ability. You can spend a use of Bardic Inspiration as a bonus action to allow Charisma modifier creatures within 60 feet that can see you to move their speed without provoking as a reaction and grant them 5 temporary hit points. So, my Charisma is +4. So that means that Maoju, Wolf, Garn, and Jim are able to move anywhere on a battlefield without provoking attacks of opportunity. This is one of the best abilities at level 3 that I have seen in the game, to be quite honest. It is phenomenal. It allows you to redraw the battlefield. It's controlling positioning, which is, again, so incredibly helpful. Also, once per rest, so between short rests, you can attempt to charm up to Charisma modifier creatures in your audience. So again, this is a performance check. This is why having +8 on performance is going to mean that we can charm 4 creatures who listen to us perform a song. And as a bard, you want to be performing as often as you can, to be quite honest. Then we also get some more spells. So, for our extra first level spell, I'm going to go Healing Word. Again, the loss of Leggy I think would affect the party, and they would start to think, okay, we need to be able to save our party members. And this is what happens as you go up in levels. You get more healing, you get more hit points. It becomes harder to die, and this is why I'm always talking about the first few levels as being the most dangerous. Then for our second level spells, I'm going to pick one from between Suggestion and Phantasmal Force. The reason why I'm picking one is because they're both concentration spells. And if you have too many concentration spells, you're kind of losing your... you're kind of wasting those spells because you can't use them at the same time. Now, granted, Suggestion is very useful in lots of different situations. Phantasmal Force is, in my opinion, one of the more powerful spells that a bard can have, really. You make an illusion in the mind of your target within 60 feet of you, and that target must make an intelligence saving throw. Often, monsters don't have super high intelligences. On a failed save, you create a Phantasmal Force, object or creature or other visible phenomenon of your choice that is no larger than a 10-foot cube and that is perceivable only to the target for the duration, which is up to 1 minute. It doesn't affect undead or constructs. The phantasm has sound, temperature, and other things to make the target believe that it's real. And essentially, that target has fear on them because they believe that it's so real, and they can also take damage. So as they are attacking them in their mind, they actually take 1d6 psychic damage if it's within the area of the Phantasmal Force. And yeah, it's a really, really cool spell. It lasts for a little while, and I think it's a good addition for Zorsha. And then finally, I'm going to go with Zone of Truth. Zone of Truth is pretty cool. It's not concentration, which is nice, but it means that people can't lie to you easily with this spell, which again, when interrogating people, hugely useful. So there we have it. Our party is all up to level 3. Let us know what you think about some of the choices that we've made for the subclasses and stuff like that. Would you have gone a different way? And why? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. What did you think of the magical items that I suggested? Are there any that you have experienced in your campaigns that really kind of mess the balance out? Let us know down in the comments below. As always, take care of each other and keep slaying. If you've enjoyed this content, then please smash that like button, subscribe, share this around online, and come and visit our website, www.lavictoriaproductions.com, to see all our past episodes, as well as our blog posts and all the stuff that we're currently working on at La Victoria Productions. Why not reach out to us and tell us what you think of our videos? You can reach us on Twitter. @MouthLaVictoria is our producer. We are also on Instagram. I am EnanoLVP, and our producer is Jazzy J. Cherot. We're also La Victoria Productions on Facebook and LinkedIn. Come on by and let us know what you think.